Oh, hello. I think we're live. I was just adjusting the camera. Now look at that. We got the old sun coming in right behind us. Let's just pull that across a little bit. There we go. Hopefully that'll focus up in a minute. Three of you. Hello, hello, hello. Hello to three of you, and thank you to JF for moderating today. It's been a little while since we've done this, so it's going to take a few minutes for me to get back into the swing of this. It's a bit odd, a bit peculiar, but there we go. Do say hello on the chat. And if JF, if you could just pop another comment in there to make sure that I can see that it's working, because at the moment I seem to just be full of emojis, so I'm not quite sure why that is. Just bear with me a sec. No, don't know. Hopefully the chat's working. So, okay. Okay, that's better. I think we've now. Nope. Okay. Kenny Chris, hello. That's nice to see you. Now, look, my camera is all very, very weird. Okay. Right, I'm going to plow in. Hello, hello, hello. So, whose world is it anyway? Well, for the first couple of minutes there, I'm not sure that it was even mine, to be quite frank. Let's just crack on. Whose world is it anyway? This is something that I wanted to talk about. I'll come back round and we'll go into detail and we'll follow the usual path and do do drop your questions into the comments and chat whenever you wish. Thank you, JF. I can see that chat's working now. That's great. I've got confidence in that. So yeah, don't worry about as we build up a little bit, as more people come on board, don't worry about when you want to pop a question in. If you've got a question specific to dowsing or anything to do with interacting with the management upstairs or the subtle realms, just pop it in. And if it's not appropriate for us to discuss it at that point, JF will remind me and we'll circle back and we'll try to cover it off. Now, I've not been on here. It was October. Can you believe it? It seems like a different world. October, when we were last on the live, and what we were talking about then was we were reflecting back on some of Merthen's teachings, my guide's teachings from some years ago. You have been missed. Well, maybe. I certainly want to get back into getting more on YouTube again, and this is part of the thing that I've been rearranging. Well, the expression is rearranging the deck chairs if you're not doing anything helpful, isn't it, or useful? But I've been rearranging things in life, and I've taken a step back from some of the things that I was committed to, in order to actually give myself more time to be here and present for the YouTube channel and for other developments. And one of the developments is that I am working on a book, which is taking a fair amount of time. And my dear friend JF will know how long I've been wanting to put that together, and he'll also know how much work is involved in putting one together. So watch this space on that one, because that will be coming out. That'll be coming out next year. And if anybody knows a publisher, point them this way and I'll send them a pitch. We'll see how it goes. Otherwise, it'll definitely be self-published, which is fine. I'm quite happy with that either way. So now, while we're there's a few of you on this and you'll be watching on playback. So just a couple of points of admin. We have got membership of the channel. So being a member is a different thing to being a subscriber. If you want to be a member and support this work, at the moment, there's a membership level of £4.99 a month. I get 40% of that. It does help actually sustain the work that I'm doing. And now that I'm doing more work on the writing side of things to try to get these messages really concrete in published form, quite frankly, I could really do with support for the channel on that side of things. It's only £4.99 if you want to join us. There's 30 videos in there for members only. So the members have been benefiting from 30 videos already. So you get those as soon as you join. Now, and one of the things I have been doing is training, a house healer training. And I'm going to start another course in a couple of months' time. So if anybody watching this is interested in climbing on board to the training, it really is a self-development package. We'll talk about this a bit later on, because it ties in with what we're talking about in terms of whose world is this. And Yeah, just let me know. Drop me a line using the contact form on my website if you're interested in learning the house healing modality. It's a self-development path over 10 months. We'll talk about that a bit more at the end. So I think that's all the bits and bobs. I've got some notes here, but I think that's all the bits and bobs. So let's, oh, I know what there is. On June the 1st, I want to mention this because I think some of you will enjoy this. And I think you'll enjoy finding more about Julie Soskin. Now, I spoke to Julie a couple of months ago now, is it? There's an interview with Julie Soskin, the sensitive, on the channel. And she runs a thing called, well, it's healing and well-being. And actually, I haven't got it written down what she calls it, but it's more to life. Her channel is more to life. The link is actually in the text beneath this thing today. But on the 1st of June, I'm one of 4 or 5 members of a panel talking about healing and well-being. And it looks to me as though all of us are coming at it from the energy, the subtle energy point of view. So I think you'll be interested in that. It's a live thing on the 1st of June, 5 o'clock British summer time. Do join us and do subscribe to Julie's channel because she's brilliant what she's doing over there. So it's fantastic. The other thing is, last thing before we talk about the world, whose world is it anyway? The last thing is that I've got another channel. I've got a sister channel. Poonam, hello. Good to see you. Excellent. Loved your Facebook post. It's really comprehensive. We might dive into some of that later on as well. Marvelous. I've got a sister channel, which again is in the link below. I've called it Your Home Heals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this channel for the dowsing and for the spiritual path of the individual. And we'll talk about the nature of consciousness and the collective and the way it all interacts. But the other channel, what I'm going to do is to keep that specifically for house healing. So we'll talk about house healing here, but that channel is just house healing. So that is all about the way that we focus intention and the way that being in that wonderful spiritual way can really help affect ourselves, other people, the environment, the sense of our lives. That's that channel. This channel is about intentional thinking, about consciousness, about the role of things and activities like house healing, the way that we can really harness that energy and really work with the management upstairs as part of us, part of our lives, part of the development and the evolution of the species that we are experiencing at the moment in this precise timestamp. Let's move on to that now, shall we? So, so where's my numbers? Oh, 14. Hello to 14 of you. Do say hello on the chat. If you're new to this, I apologize that my screen, I think, is going a little bit in and out of focus, but if you're new here, do say hello. If you're a regular, you know what we're about, and we do kind of take these meandering side avenues quite commonly, quite often. Sometimes I can even put words together. So look, I'm going to talk at this as though you're regulars. Tanvir, you're a regular. You understand this. You will have heard this before. Tanvir is also a member, which is why he's got that lovely red star next to his name. Now, we understand, right? I'm going to assume that everybody watching this now gets the idea. They understand the idea, the concept of being a co-creator, being one of the aspects of reality that creates the environment in which we live. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this thing, this experience of being alive today. And we call it being here on Earth. We call it this the world. Whose world is it anyway? It's not about who's running the world, although these are important questions and we'll come to those in a minute. It's actually, we're going to start off here just by thinking, now, if we're creating this world, what's the standpoint? What's the perspective that we try to understand the full implications of that concept from? Because it's not a case of saying, this is the human being and this is the world. We can, of course, look at all aspects of our environment purely from the physical realm and the aspect, and we can pull it apart, we can take it apart, and God knows there's people all over the world that are doing exactly that, pulling it apart to try and investigate it and find out what's going on. But here on this channel, what we believe and follow, and the standpoint we start everything from, is from the non-material. So we believe that, or I believe that uh, the nature of being, the physical aspect, is created moment to moment from the quantum foam of infinite possibility. Now, that's the basics of quantum science, quantum mechanics, that says, okay, there's this layer of quantum foam that creates particles and atoms, and they form a structure, and they do that because they're being observed from moment to moment. And that observation is usually taken to be human observation, or certainly a sentient being. So humanity is part of that observational role. But equally, although science can't include the word God, God sort of has to come into the concept. Now, from my point of view, God, the management, the universe, the conscious cosmos, all of those terms are interchangeable. They all have an influence on our experience from moment to moment to moment. Now, so what does that mean? Right. Well, so at the moment, whenever I ask anybody this question, and let's say I'm asking you, okay? Now, if we say and we believe that the experience of being alive, being here in this moment, is formed from the quantum field of infinite possibility that we are generating, and that our individual perception of the universe flows and creates, and we interact with it. So it's happening instantly because of this thing called entanglement, most likely. We won't go into what that is, but let's just say that there's this instant feedback loop going on between us and the external world. And in fact, the external world is created from within. Now, if that is the case, and if, as we have said many times before, that JF's universe is slightly different to mine, which it is, because from his subjective point of view, he is experiencing slightly different things, and he will be experiencing different, I mean, literally different atoms and different particles and blah, right? Sorry, blah is not a scientific concept. I'm not trying to be scientific. I'm trying to use the basics to explain in simple terms the mechanism. So, hello, Jenny. Good to see you. And if we are, as Tanvir says here, if we are fragments of the divine, if we are fractals of the divine, if we are fractals of the divine, which is what R.J. Spina is very, very common. It's a phrase that R.J. Spina uses very commonly. If we're fractals, it means that we have the aspects of the divine. It means we have the abilities of the divine, but at a smaller scale. We're just in the scale of what we are, or what we are in here, which is not what we are here. Now, so if all of this is how it is, and the question is, in my reality, I witness I am told there is biodiversity lack out there in the environment. I am told things about the world in which I live, which are not pleasant. I am told that there are wars going on. I am told other things. It doesn't matter what they are. What I actually witness is a lot of biodiversity. I witness a huge amount of very interesting creatures literally on the doorstep. I know I'm lucky to live in a very beautiful rural place, but that's my direct experience. My direct experience is sometimes one of conflict. Yes, okay, so that's a kind of an echo of, okay, we've got war going on. That's said in the bigger picture, war. Okay, well, I can experience conflict sometimes. Certainly I experience anger. Certainly I experience frustration. So, okay, Right. But my question is, if I am living in my universe and you, let's say Jenny or Poonam, are living in their universes, do they, Jenny, Poonam, particularly, or but any of you, experience directly the same things that I do, right? So what I mean is, are you involved in a war? Well, I'm not involved in war because I don't experience it directly. Um, do you experience anger? Well, of course you do. Okay. Yeah, of course you do. Sometimes. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's the whole point, right? But the world out there is not what it seems. So the references that I can say, well, I experience biodiversity, I experience a huge range of biodiversity. Um, is it as much biodiversity? Are there as many birds, plants, animals on the doorstep as there would have been in the 1960s? Well, that's a question. But is it a relevant question? Because is history anything more than just another possibility, one that happened in the past? Whereas what we're doing is constantly interacting with the infinite field of possibility to create the probability, to create the actuality that we then literally live. Have I lost you all already? I sometimes lose myself, but I mean, these are the questions that I'm looking at in the book. The book is provisionally titled Reality Engineering. It's got a bit about my story, about meeting the ghost in the house, about how that changed our lives, about finding earth energy. RM, good, okay. But so, and let's talk a little bit about earth energy. Okay, so yeah, it is deep. I know, and I love. You might have seen some of the other conversations I've had with people. I had a lovely conversation with. Oh, I've forgotten her name. Isn't that terrible? Lovely lady. We've talked about biophilic design in the past. Can't remember her name. That's terrible. But we were talking about. Yeah. Kinney Chris. So I was talking with this other lady about the nature of reality, and we instantly dive in deep. But I love it. It's fine. It's great. But I think it's where we need to go because I think that I, because I think that I haven't yet met anybody. I've only spoken to one person that has understood this concept, the concept that I'm trying to get across here. So I've only spoken to one person ever in my life that said it before I even got to it, about the nature of what we actually experience and what we actually truly are. And actually, believe it or not, that was my uncle, and he got it. It was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you know what? I've got a. Okay. Hello. Yes, that's Mark. Hello, Mark. You made it. Well done. Um, so look, this point is that we cannot truly understand and interact with the world as it is going to be from the perspective of the physical human being. The role of the physical human being is now redundant in the extent of being the place from which spirituality springs. So the only way to understand and comprehend where collectively we are going is to understand that we are like waves. Now, you've heard that before. You've heard that before, and you've heard Paul Selig talking about this. The nature of the wave is the point of awareness where the pebble drops into the mill pond. That point of contact is the now and the being that is the observing point, which we call us, humanity, in this context. The ripples of that observation spread and create form around it. Those ripples interact. There's another stone that drops into the mill pond over here. Doesn't need to be at the same time, because the ripples will interact with those ripples. And when they interact, the beings that are observing at that point are interacting. So, what this means is that the subjective reality that we experience, the subjective, what we witness, what I've described as being abundance in the natural world, what I witness is the important thing to work with, to be aware of, to only consider as a guide to what is going on and what one is emanating and receiving in each moment. Not what we believe, not our preconceived ideas of what is out there. Yes, we are told that there is a war in Ukraine, and I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. It's just that it's not, I am not in that battle. And the reasons and the form and why that battle has occurred in the three-dimensional world that exists are actually, to me, although I feel for the people that are involved in it, not of consequence. What is of consequence is the themes of authoritarianship that threaten to crush the growth of us and our awareness even more than we have been subjected to in the past. Now, what this is about is a thematic approach to the issues of one finding oneself, because what on a spiritual path, what we're doing is the goal of the spiritual path is to merge the individual essence that is the physical with the real self that is the non-physical, which is the real being within. But the real being within is here to experience and understand and process at a level that we might want to call 3 dimensions. We might want to call it 5 dimensions. You can call it however many dimensions you want to. You don't have to even think in dimensions. Let's think in waves. We process through the waves of experience. So we have to assimilate the individual. In our context, in the way that we understand it, we have to think of it as knowing ourselves. And let's go right back to the old Delphic oracle. I love talking about the Delphic oracle in this sense, which is that supposedly above the Delphic oracle, the greatest oracle of all time, supposedly, it were the words, know thyself. And that is the one fundamental thing that we are all trying to do in following a spiritual path. Now, Poonam actually rather wonderfully, hello, Jill, nice to see you, rather wonderfully described the journey sorry, Poonam, I don't actually know whether you're a male or a female. I don't know. I'm sorry. Forgive me, but your wonderful writing was describing a path of self-discovery and of understanding the relationship that you now have with your heart and understanding the power of the heart. And that's thank you. I apologize. I'm sorry. I kind of suspected you might be, but I didn't want to say. So Poonam's written this lovely Facebook post. I mean, goodness knows how long it took you to write that. Which is talking about the vibration, talking about the heart vibration and how we learn to resonate differently as we follow a spiritual path and a path of self-healing. And that's really what we're talking about here. Because the world created by our waves, from that point of the stone going into the mill pond, those waves create the experience of reality in which we live. Again, I love astrology. I love astronomy. Sorry, I love astronomy. That's funny. I love astrology too, but I meant astronomy. I love astronomy. But actually, in terms of the point of the stone going into the mill pond and the ripples creating the reality that we experience, the astronomy is a background facet that explains to our logical mind how we can be here. And it manifests. We manifest the environment. We manifest the explanation of how we are where we are. And history can be thought of as simply a backstory that we make up and we agree on, and that's fine. And we also agree that actually history is made up by the people that write the history. Well, okay, fine. But history is still fascinating. Archaeology is still fascinating. The concept of the planet being populated by massive dinosaurs millions of years ago, that is fascinating. But but it's all just backstory about that enables us to comprehend and understand we are present. It's actually irrelevant unless we're fighting or we're looking or we're searching for answers to questions that we are asking or being asked of, that actually we can find information in these places when we look in them, or when we look in archaeology, or when we look in history, or when we look in astronomy. Do they give us answers energetically to the questions that are being asked? Right? So they have a relevance. All of this stuff has a relevance. Now, um, okay. So, um, any questions, folks? Let's dive in. I kind of hope that because I know I'm jumping around. I know I'm jumping around, and to be frank, I'm not sure whether I'm speaking English. Any questions on any of this at the moment, or are you just happy to kind of go along with it? Okay, we'll just move on. Because what I wanted to go to was I wanted to go to this thing of how we create the world. And we know in theory, we've all experienced wonderful Joe Dispenza's stuff. We've all experienced thanks, Kenny Chris. We've all experienced all sorts of wonderful thought leaders and spiritual leaders. And incidentally, I've got RJ returning to the channel in a few weeks' time. I've got Paul Selig coming back. What a great channel he is! What a guy! I've also got an interview coming up with a shaman, very knowledgeable and wise shaman, lovely guy as well, Jonathan Hammond. He's worth keep an eye out for that one. But more importantly, next week, I am talking to a lady called Shenaz Soni. Now, Shenaz Soni, I'm just going to read this here because she works at NASA. She's currently the senior system engineer. She's written a book called The Quantum Being, a self-sustaining and magnificent human craft. And that is about exploring the intersection of quantum principles and personal transformation. So she fits right in here. This is like great. I saw some of her interview that she did on Next Level Soul podcast, right? And she's brilliant. She actually will be able to explain the concepts that I've just spent 20 minutes talking about. She'd explain them in 1 minute. And it is just like, oh, this is great. So look out for that. I'm talking to her next week. Hopefully that's when we're booked to talk. So the interview will be kind of like maybe a week later or something like that. So keep your eyes open for that. So these are brilliant people. I forgot where I was going. I know. So we're all familiar with this idea of this creative self. Okay. And our real true essence being that creative self that's interacting with the infinite field of possibility in order to create the lovely waves that we regard as being a tangible external presence environment. Now, yeah, she would. Good. So the thing is, along the path, right, along this spiritual path, this path of exploration and self-development, which I advocate starting with the dowsing, because the dowsing is just a brilliant door opener, and that's why I talk so much about the dowsing. I haven't really talked about dowsing for a long time. I mean, I did that one a few months ago, but I need to do some more of those. But dowsing is a brilliant way to really give yourself some substance, some concrete belief about your intuition working. It's not infallible, but there are ways, there are things you've got to kind of learn about it and about yourself and about your connection to upstairs in order to really take it along and move along the path. but it's a brilliant place to start. So start with the dowsing. But the point is that then what that dowsing will show you is that you're not what you thought you were. So that's what happens at the beginning of a spiritual path, the beginning of a self-development process. And sometimes what happens is that people get blasted by spirit. And at the moment, we've got a lot of that going on where people are being blasted into recognizing, hang on, hang on, hang on, this is not, I am not where I thought I was. This world doesn't work the way I thought it did. This is all part of the massive global change that we're going through, right? But so this can be a very unsettling time. So this is the aspect of the spiritual awakening that can be really unsettling. And part of that is that actually you lose you can get blown away. Your mind can literally be blown by the synchronicitous events. So you can skirt dangerously close to psychosis as you open up in the early days before you get grounded in it and before you can really change your perception and your point of view on what you are and what the world is. And then you've got to allow that to settle and allow it not to knock you off your feet in those times of change, because it can. And especially anybody that's sort of susceptible to bipolar or any of those kind of what we call mental conditions. And I mean, that's all pretty debatable. I'm not saying the medical profession's wrong. I'm not saying there aren't these conditions. Heaven knows I know that there are these labels that can be applied to it. But in most cases, what it's about is about a heightened sense of sensitivity, a heightened sensitivity to the aspects of the world around us, the rippling waves, that many people that function on the logical brain rather than the heart are simply not aware of. So it gets dismissed. And a lot of psychology is basically packaging people into these sections in order for them to be helped. And yes, they do help. Of course they help. But the real power for the individual that's being affected is actually in finding stability themselves through a shift of their own awareness and a shift of their own understanding. And of course, one of the things that we learn as we go through this path is that actually there is no set time scale, there is no set path for everybody. We don't all follow the same path, for goodness sake, do we? So everybody needs to be allowed to make their own way, make their own progress, make their own mistakes as they develop mentally, spiritually, and holistically, really. But what we're saying here is coming back to the process of manifesting and of experiencing reality. We've actually got three inputs that are going on, right? And this is why it very often seems like, well, this manifesting lark doesn't work. Well, I'm sorry, guys, it does, right? It's working 24 hours a day, 100% of the time. But the reason that we consciously think it doesn't work is because it's mainly running from our subconscious. So the earth energy system of the planet is sucking all of the information that we are giving out all the time on a subconscious level of our wants, desires, needs. Consciously, we're not aware of what we're doing. I mean, the dream world we might be. And when you're on the path of doing the spiritual work, doing the shadow work and all of that stuff, boy, do you face it and see it. But most of the time, people are not aware that that is what's going on. So you've got the subconscious input going into the system, the manifesting system. Don't forget, earth energy is part of the structural framework of the reality. I've described it in the past as being the information flows, but that kind of doesn't really make sense. But that was the way that it was given to me by my guide years ago, was that it was part of that information flow. But it's better to describe it as part of the framework, part of the unseen template that the collective reality is built upon. So it's rather like Rupert Sheldrake's morphic fields. Have a look at that, Google those. I tried to get Rupert Sheldrake to come on the channel, but he said he was too busy. But that's what earth energy is like. It's like part of those morphic fields that allows our reality to hold in place and to be present for 7.5 or 8 billion souls now on the planet. So subconscious mind, we've got the conscious mind. The conscious mind is definitely a part of the manifesting process. But don't forget, everything that we do is analog. It's not digital. It's not on and off. So sometimes the conscious mind is far more able to be playing its part and manifesting literally. And when we're aware of it, we manifest deliberately. There are all sorts of mystical practices that we can do that will aid the conscious mind and aid the conscious manifesting process. But don't forget, most of it's subconscious. And the third input with all of this stuff is the management itself. It's the management upstairs. For anybody that isn't familiar with this term that I use, the management upstairs is all of those personalities that, to me, are I'm talking too fast. So the management upstairs really is just all of those personalities and those beings that are on the other side of the veil, the non-physical beings, all of those aspects that are out there. Now, when we start to interact with the infinite field of possibility, then we can come across all sorts of beings, all sorts of possible forms and energies. And not all of them are obligingly helpful and what we would describe as, absolutely wonderfully loving. They all have a place, they all have a purpose, and they have a right to exist. And part of the house healing work is to actually help them go and exist somewhere else where they're less troublesome. But it's not about destroying them, it's about shifting them to some other aspect of the conscious cosmos. But the management, when I talk about the management upstairs, I'm talking about all the loving beings that are there, that are fundamentally love, almost incarnate, that absolutely are there for each and every one of us if we care to ask for their help. So the management are those beings that we have spent time with before we've incarnate in this form, before our true essence has been born into a physical body within that physical body. And that essence has had conversations with the management about, what aspects do you think you need to encounter in order to help us at this next level, the level on that we have not yet experienced in the other realm? So the management know, and we could say our guides, the management, our guides are connected to the management. They have a hotline to it. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. The management knows what we're here for individually. The management helps us by creating part of what we experience. And quite often the management are the aspect that puts the obstacles, the challenges, the big changes into our experience of life, because those are the points that we learn from. I don't know why I'm climbing stairs, but we learn from them, right? Hello, great name, The Way 126. Yes, we do generate vibration in a very sloppy way. Yes, and I agree with that, Poonam, as well. And the reason that we're doing it sloppily is because we don't recognize and don't understand. We have lost the knowledge of what we are. So we randomly create all this stuff, and look where it gets us. Now, look. Let me just come back out of this. So we've got a three inputs of manifesting into the partly through the earth energy system, but certainly into creating the ripples of our reality in which we live. Now, the reason that this is important is because, now this is going to sound a bit like a bit of a killjoy here. How do I best say? I'm just going to say this, and it's either going to land with you really badly or it's going to land okay. Right. Okay. The easiest way of saying it is like this. There's 16 of you out there. Fabulous. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. 16 of you out there currently listening to what I'm saying. Now, you're all thinking, What's in it for me? How does this apply to me? Some of you might be thinking, what the hell's he talking about? Some of you are kind of like, oh yeah, I get this. This is great. Right. Now, so you're all making judgments on, do you accept it? Do you think that's interesting? Are you going to kind of think about it some more after the live is over? Are you going to incorporate some of the aspects that we're trying to talk about into your work, your practice, your being, your development? Right. You're all making those the judgments. And judgments in this sense is not, not a bad thing. Now, what that means is that you're deciding, do I want to take on board what Tim is saying or not? Does what Tim says sound, feel that it resonates, or does that sound like, no, that doesn't sound right? Now, the thing is that because this system of manifesting is so amazingly wonderful, we almost constantly forget what we are, the ripple in the pond. Just drop me a line. Drop me a line on my website, and that's absolutely fine. That'd be great. So I'm talking to the way. There's a link on the homepage of the YouTube channel. So we forget that we are that point of awareness dropping into the mill pond. We forget that we are the waves. We look at somebody, I'll name a name. I actually think he's brilliant. Russell Brand. I do think he does some fantastic work. But even he, who is a very conscientious and well-meaning person, human being, what he's doing and what anybody is doing, what I'm doing is actually putting out for you to pick up and either go with or not, concepts about the world. Concepts about the world. So I talked earlier on about control, about authoritarianism, and those concepts, how we relate to those concepts is what really matters. And that's really what I'm trying to get at, is because as soon as you make a judgment, as soon as you make a judgment, as soon as I make a judgment about what Russell Brand is saying, for example, or anybody else, and you make a judgment about what I'm saying, if you decide to take it on board, then you are taking, energetically, you are changing your world. Right. And it can be thought of specifically like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be, it's not psychology. We know that if we're expecting something, all our cognitive biases and all of that stuff means that's what we see. But what I'm talking about is that actually, literally, the world that we experience, the ripples that we send out, change and incorporate that aspect, because that's what this environment that we are in is so absolutely brilliantly designed to do, is to take what you believe and give it back to you. This is the most magnificent mirror. That's what this life is. It is the most magnificent, effective mirror. But my God, we stare into that mirror and we don't see anything half the time. We certainly don't see it as a mirror. Now, spiritually speaking, we talk a lot about when we meet somebody else, they're reflecting aspects of us. And yes, of course they are. But our lives are reflecting the aspects of us that have brought us to this point. So if there are things in that life that we don't like, we ain't got anybody to blame. I mean, we can, we can spend hours blaming other people if we want. And it is a combined creative reality that we live in. And so therefore, our responsibility is to maintain as clear a signal from our heart on that level of love, to maintain that as clearly as possible, as often as possible, as we step through our life, our experience of being here and of sharing this experience of being a human being. That's what the label is at the moment. Yeah. So yes, exactly, and that's the fear mindset, right? And that's the point, Jill. That's what I'm getting at, is that partly because he's a wonderful performer as well, and I mean he's genuine. I do absolutely believe he's genuine, but his angle is okay. We'll get the viewers because that's what he is. He's a performer. He wants the viewers. He wants that, and it keeps the system running. Obviously, so do I. So do I. But let's not. I mean, I wish I could say to him, "Come on, see this, turn that fear down." And then you look at some of the other channels, it's like, whoa, that's just so fear, such so much on the fear transmission level that I just don't want to do that. You don't need it. It's not about running away. It's not about turning a blind eye. It's not about being neglectful. It's actually completely the opposite. It's about being mindful of what is coming at you, and especially these days when with the clicks, about what are we clicking on? Because as soon as you're clicking, you're changing that ripple pattern. Now, the I'm just reading your comment, Jill. Yeah. I think the important thing is that they're also I mean, it's great being in nature, and the power of imagination is fantastic. Imagination is what we've been given in order to be able to manifest, because we're creative beings, and imagination gives us that ability to create. And anybody that does artwork or writing or any of that stuff, that imagination is fantastically powerful and really, really useful. It's what we're designed to do. And but equally, we also need to be grounded with it. When we're doing the spiritual practice, we need to be grounded. We do need to do the shadow work, but that can be done in the fullness of time. But the really important thing is that you can only maintain a clear signal by doing the shadow work, by doing the work that means that your heart actually is not understanding, but is resonating with the true you. So all of your beliefs, all of our beliefs, because I'm including myself in this, I'm in constant work in progress here, rather like the house, ironically, or symbolically. All of our beliefs go into making the experience moment by moment that we are aware of, that we process and progress through. So the shadow work to understand and forgive and accept and move on from the traumas that we've had as a human being that still remain within us, because the cellular structure retains all of that trauma until it's dealt with and released, and process part of the human progress. Golly, haven't we talked a lot? David! Oh, yeah, good to see you, mate. Good to see you. Good to see you. Don't you worry about it. So, look, anybody, come on, questions. Let's have a 5-minute break onto questions. I won't ask David for a question because the poor fellow's only just found us again. I do intend to be back again soon. I can't say that it'll definitely be next month, but we will try. I missed, actually, let me go back up, because Tanvir, through astrology, we can also explain possible humans' actions and thought process of celestial planetary position. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, sorry, I said I was going to be quiet and allow questions, but astrology is very important. And people like you, Tanvir, are really good at working with astrology, and it helps you, it gives you guidance how to help other people. Okay, so 2 questions, thank you. So Jill, shadow work, never fully understood it. Can you clarify how? Well, really, it's, I would, and again, I'm not the expert here, but well, I suppose I'm supposed to be. I am simply giving across my experience and what I've learned from other people. Okay, cool, that's fine. And Jill, shadow work is about, you will find that you're triggered by things. Things will trigger you. Things will make you angry. Things will make you sad. Things will make you, I don't know, just react in ways that we would consider are low energy. Okay. Hey, Nancy, great, good to see you. So these low energy reactions that we have, the reason that they're low energy is because they are triggering, they're connecting to something in us that goes into the low energy. It takes us into low energy, and the reason that it's called shadow work is because it's looking at the low energy stuff. It's looking at the darkness that is in everybody. That darkness doesn't mean to say that we're all axe murderers. It just means that there are things about the individual, the person. Every one of us has the darkness, a degree of darkness in us. And quite often, the darkness is there simply because nobody, simply because we don't understand the world. We don't understand us. We don't understand what's going on. And that causes friction. It causes dissonance where we are out of alignment with flow of good energy, flow of love, flow of positivity, right? So we're dissonant, we're pushed into dissonance, which pushes us out of sync, if you like, from being nicely in the flow of feeling balanced, feeling in harmony, feeling peaceful or joyous. And joy and love are really the targets for the human emotion as we go along the spiritual path. Doesn't mean to say that we've got to be fluffy, fluffy, fluffy. Far from it. Grounding the compassion, grounding love as compassion, shall we say, if we want to use a different terminology, that's part of that aspect. Now, so shadow work is like if you find that you are you okay, so let's put it into a family context, and let's say you have a really bad relationship with your mother, and actually all you do when you see your mother is fight and argue. Let's say that means that there's triggers. There are, and with a mother-daughter sort of relationship, there's inevitably going to be quite a lot of trigger points potentially that could have resulted in dissonance, could have resulted in low vibes as the individual grew up, and the mother was doing her best to do that, but perhaps she was too controlling and all of this stuff, and it meant that the person has grown up with a lot of triggers potentially about the things they see and things, and maybe it just adds up to a whole worldview, a life script that is based on actually the world's a shitty place, but which isn't true, right? It's not true. That is not true. And equally, the world is not per se a dangerous place. The world is actually both safe, believe it or not, and again, I struggle with that, but that's the work I'm doing. It's a safe place, and it's a beautiful, loving place. Now, yeah, I know it's hard to believe, but it is. It is when we change our perception of what we are encountering. So shadow work is about working on the darker side of stuff, if that makes sense, right? How to do the shadow work? Well, the, there's so right when somebody comes to me, for example, if they've come to me for house healing, then I am looking at their energy as well as the house energy, and so as a process of that, a process involved in that, and any of the house healers do this. Um, uh, we really are starting to look at shadow work because we're looking at the detrimental aspects of that person's energy, and what it is that's affected them and brought them into the shadow feeling. Because if they're being affected by detrimental things in their environment, it means that the shadow is triggering those things in the environment, right? So not only does the person get triggered in the way that I explained before, but also on the subtle level, the environment can be triggered from the person, so the environment can be activated to reflect the darker side of the person. Right? It doesn't mean to say the person's bad. Far from it. Far from it. The person actually is on a path to improvement, but the management has decided that it needs to work on these things. Hence, the situation that occurs. So, yeah, great. You got it. Yes. So that's that. So there are all sorts of different ways that you can work on the shadow side, on the dark side, to improve it and to move on and to really bring more love into all aspects of our lives. That's really what we're trying to do, because that actually leads. It does lead to completely shifting your perspective on reality. Jenny, any tips for staying present? It really is just that same old mindfulness thing, you know. It really is. It's cultivating the habit of trying to be mindful, but also don't beat yourself up about not being mindful. Don't beat yourself up about um, look, I when I'm weeding in here in the garden, I know you like doing the gardening. When I'm weeding here, I know that my mind is hurtling to the past, flying to the future. It's anywhere but here and now. So I do try, and I do use the word try because it isn't always successful. I do try to bring my awareness into my body, to bring my awareness to what I'm doing. I I try not these days. I try not to communicate too much to the plants that I'm working with because that puts me straight into my head. And actually, the reason I want to be doing the gardening is to actually get in my body. Yeah. So, but just be mindful. You know how to do it. You just don't beat yourself up in putting too much emphasis on how often you might feel that you're not present. Just be mindful of the moments that you are, Jenny. Okay. And I can only say that to you because I know you a little bit, and I know that actually what you've expressed there is exactly what I express. I would love to be far more mindful, it'd be great. But we work on it and we progress and we make progress. So now, I think what I was saying earlier on about dear old Russell was be aware when you're listening to this and talking to me, and doing the stuff that we talk about, that it is only my point of view. You have to decide, you have to be mindful about, am I going to take that on board or not? Right. And if it works for you, take it on board. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. Just leave it to the one side. Always just leave things to one side. We talked a little bit earlier on about how sometimes with a spiritual awakening, the early days in particular, you can get a little bit you can get mentally unseated. You can get a little bit, you can get blasted so much by the new energies that it really does blow your mind. And psychosis can be an issue because you can get caught up in the wows so much that actually you can then get into this state of anxiety, hyper anxiety, and it all leads into this big whirlpool of just disconnect. And this is why we do have to do the work on the heart. We talked about that just now. But the really, really basic, simple thing to always remember, if you are finding life difficult with all the wow experiences and all the amazing synchronicities that can happen when you're nicely in the flow, it can be a bit overwhelming. And if that is happening and it is too overwhelming and it's too much of a shift, you just simply refuse. Just put it all to one side for a few days or for a week or for a couple of weeks. Just put it all to one side. Forget that you've even, well, not forget, but yeah, forget for that period of time that you've even been thinking about spiritual stuff. Stop trying to connect to plants and beings and stop doing the dowsing. Just put it all to one side and just be a normal person like you used to be. Now, I mean, I kind of say that with half a joke, but it's not a joke because it's the only way that you can back out of that feeling of being very unstable and being a little bit paranoid with the amount of awesome things that are happening. So you just back out. You just say, nope, okay, closing the door on that for a little while and just, nope, not even going to think about it. Okay. You just close it off and just go back to normal stuff. and try and get as grounded as you possibly can. Being grounded. We've had people in the past talk about grounding sheets in their beds and this sort of thing, and that's great. But really, just the simple process of just walking, exercising, get away from the screens, be really present in nature, ideally, and just really feel it. But don't go off meditating as you're walking in nature. Just really feel the effort and take a route that is a bit more exerting for you, so that you get the energy of your body working again and get out of your head. Okay. So you're going to have to explain, Mark. That's what I've done with dowsing. Do you mean you've had to put it down, or do you mean you've found ways to get around it with the dowsing? Could you just clarify that? Because it's like, I'm not quite sure what you mean. So yeah, okay. So look, we've talked quite a lot about stuff, and I'm hoping that what you feel is that we've talked about. Oh, you had to put it down. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, no, that's fine. So and that's okay, because what you can do is just gently go back to it again when you're ready to go back to it again. Okay. Um, yeah. Because I did that several times, and it's perfectly okay to do that, just to let it go and to stop. Yeah, it is. So I think one of the key things that does sort of build on this as well is the most important thing. Not only is it to understand that you can't back out of all of it and just close off for a little while until you're ready to go back. And that closing off, you can leave it alone for years if you want to. But I never could. So I went back. After a few weeks, usually. But one of the things is, so you understand that you've got your escape route, if you like. You've got your plan B that you can go to, and it's perfectly okay to use your plan B when you have to, right? Especially now, things are really ramping up. But the other thing to be really aware of, and this relates to the resonance of the heart and to resonating at the level that you want to resonate at, and not to create dissonance for yourself and everybody else, is truthfulness and honesty. 100%. So it's easy sometimes. I used to do this a long time ago. I would try and figure out what somebody wanted to hear, and I would say it in the way that I thought that they would accept. So some of the time, all those decades ago, I wasn't really being truthful to myself, right? So we can be truthful to ourselves in so many different situations. We don't have to be rude. We don't have to have an argument. We don't have to have a fight. We can be pleasantly, just true to ourselves and our beliefs, and true to our heart, and speak our truth without being unpleasant to anybody else. And part of actually being true to yourself is to recognize that other people are also trying to be true to themselves, and they ain't you. So that's where it'll link into that compassionate love, because 7.5 billion souls, or 8 billion souls on the planet. I'll have to double check what the figure is now. That's a lot of unique people wandering around. And there is no need for us to ever feel that we need to be like somebody else. There is no need to ever feel that we need to be like somebody else, to be copying somebody else, to be as good as somebody else, to be as efficient as somebody else, to be as whatever it is as somebody else. We are who we are, and we work to the best of our abilities in the way that we find the possible route to work in those ways. That was a terrible way of saying it. That's definitely not channeled. We do the best we can. Now, RJ, bless him, would say, "Well, you can't say that. I'm not, I won't accept people say we're only human." And I get what he means. It's like, why give ourselves a cop out? Why give up before we started? Um, but I tend to be a little bit more gentle on ourselves, I think, than perhaps RJ is. Again, I'll bring that up in a conversation when I talk to him next. But I think that being gentle on yourself on this path is actually really important. But that's not to say that you're letting yourself off. There still needs to be a degree of discipline in the process that you're undertaking. Okay. So, just over the hour. We've been just over the hour. Who knew? Well, there you go. Look, there is some other stuff. We touched today on a lot of stuff that we've talked about before, and I hope it hasn't repeated itself to a degree of boredom. There's 25 of you on at the moment. It's been about 20 or so throughout, on and off. So I'm assuming that it was interesting. I find it interesting. And really what we are talking about is our relationship to reality. That's kind, Jill. Thank you. It is our relationship to our reality, because our reality, the experience that we have, is us. It truly is. And earth energy, finding earth energy and working with it is one of the doorways through to that. Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts to finding our true selves, but that's why we have a good long stretch of several decades, hopefully, or in this environment in which to learn. And if we only learn one thing, then it means that we were only here to learn that one thing. So there is no rush. Good to see you. And JF, thank you. Thank you very much. Good. I'm glad that, Mark. Thank you. That's all good. So let's see if we can do one again next month. Let's see. I can't promise. Keep your eyes open. If you're connected to me on Facebook, it always gets announced on Facebook. If you're on the YouTube, you might well see it. If you want to be a member, join. And we might, if we've got 20 members, as I said, I've always said this right from the start. If we've got 20 members, we've got 18 at the moment. If we get to 20 members, then I will do a private members only live, and we can actually have a bit more of a in-depth discussion. I'm not sure how much deeper it would go, but obviously it could be a little bit more personal if you're prepared to talk about that spiritual stuff in a small group of people. But let's see how it goes. It's all helpful. I thank you for being here, and I thank you for simply being you. So you keep being you. I'll try to keep being me, and we'll see how it goes, eh? It can only be a good thing. Nancy. Who knew? Maybe. No, good. All right. Okay. Let's. I will. Come on. I'm going to stay just for two minutes more. I do need to go in a couple of minutes, but yeah. So the house healing. Okay. If you're interested in the house healing, drop me a line. That's the best thing. Drop me an email, because I haven't really got a lot of information online about it. There's stuff on my website, but I really need to update my website. That's www.knightsrose.com. I need to update it. So just drop me an email and we can have a conversation on email about it if you're interested. It's a commitment, right? It's 10 months of self-development. So it's almost a year and there's a reason why it's 10 months, because it's all about you working with your connection to the management. And over that period of time, that length of time gives you the opportunity to actually develop and change. It can be quite tumultuous. This time, we've had quite a few people that have had quite a lot of change happen in their lives. That often happens with spiritual development courses, so it's not just this one. But it is a self-development course, it's a spiritual development course, it's over 10 months. And it has been described as life-changing. So I'm not just saying that. It's there. It's there for you if you want it, if you're interested. Jen, good. Take care. I'll see you soon. RM, take care. Kinney Chris, see you again. Thank you. Bye bye. I'm going now. Bye.